and I am a DD crisis manager and service supervisor, and I volunteer with the National Society of Leadership and Success, as well as numerous other organizations throughout the Big Island, including the East Hawaii Special Needs Council, and other ones like that. And let's see, a mother of 4, been married for 11 years. And you make what you want and you pave your own road. The National Society of Leadership and Success, that's where I am the VP of membership, and we oversee over 44,000 students. We're the largest chapter in the nation and even globally, and we work globally with all students to basically assist them in becoming leaders and successful by creating motivation and SMART goals, and really, having good support and networking. The most important thing to me is family first. But I am still a student. I'm still obtaining my master's in business administration as well as healthcare administration. And I previously got my master's in mental health services and counseling. And I also did substance abuse counseling with the same company that I've been a DD crisis manager and service supervisor for over 7 years.
Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about, because, a lot of times people underestimate us moms, man. We all do a lot. A lot of us are trying to get degrees, and, you see us at the grocery store, you wouldn't think, right? Because we just got all these kids or whatever.
It's difficult on moms, but I also feel it's very difficult on fathers. Like Obama said, families without the dad in the household are 20% more likely to become criminals and 50% more likely to have mental health issues. Think about what's best. And I'm not saying that if you're like in a domestic violence situation, you should stay, but that should pretty much be the only reason you wouldn't, right? Is because it's dangerous for yourself or the child. But otherwise, I feel that it's really important for the child's well-being to be a unit and to work with one another. And especially if you want to have multiple kids, you want to show them the way, but you have to be that example. And, for instance, if you're a mother of a son, how would you feel if he was a father and, mistreated? And you would feel the same with your daughter if she was a mother and mistreated. So I think it's really important, for the overall mental health, is to look at the whole picture, and most importantly, be aware of the choices that you make and the things that you allow in life. It starts with the mom, but if we're not, committed to the family unit, then it's going to really affect your mental health. Because, like, for instance, I've been married for 11 years, and I feel that I can't be away from my husband more than a day or two, or it will really affect my mental health in a negative way. One of my favorite things to do is have family time. And that to me alleviates my stress, or playing video games. A healthy diet is also very important. Taking care of yourself is very important, because if you can't take care of yourself, you shouldn't put yourself in a position to care for others, because it's okay to not be ready, but there's always help out there. There always is. Like I said, like, advocacy is huge, that's how, we connected, was that we're both advocates in the community for multiple different things, so yeah. And, I've even had to seek mental health help. I've gone through trauma and depression and all kinds of different things. I honestly have been in and out of therapy since I was 7 years old. So, seeking that help is really important. And sometimes it's just being able just to talk to somebody without the fear of being judged, because even talking to family and friends, sometimes we feel judged, or we feel that we can't for whatever internal reason. So, to really help those moms out there, I would really suggest, researching and networking for help. Find something that really helps you internally, like volunteering, for instance. All those little things, even though they're small, can really help. Or, starting to decide, hey, I want, if you're someone that's like tired of being in poverty and you want to do more, then go to school. Don't just get a dead-end job just because you feel I'm a mom and it's all I can do. That's not true. And support, the whole family in that, because if you really want your child to succeed, they're going to look at you for that success. So like a lot of the students I've helped tell me, it was really hard for me to get my master's or my bachelor's. And when my kids saw that, they're now in high school, middle school, getting straight A's. And I asked them why. Why do they feel they need to do that? They said, if you could do it while raising me, I have no excuse. And that to me is very fulfilling as a mom to hear. Like when you look at yourself, think, what will my child think of me in 5 years? What will my child think of me in 10 years? Or children? So if you're going to be that mom, then do that. And if you feel you're not ready, and, I am someone who does not believe in abortion at all in any way, shape, or form. There's always adoption out there. There's many people out there that can't have children. There's many people that specialize in special needs or Down syndrome or, having children that have drug issues from the womb. Just because that happened doesn't mean that that child has any less, ability to live. And that's my personal belief. So I don't think that any life should ever be taken, because you will regret that. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're 16. I'll give you an example. Say you're 16. You got pregnant with your first boyfriend. You're too young. You have an abortion. Now you're 30. Now you settled down, now trying to get married. Now you have a tilted uterus and can't have that baby you wanted. That is what I mean by that. And a lot of times women can't have kids because they had abortions previously and didn't realize that. So that's what I would say about the abortion piece. And with parents that do really good and raise their children right, sometimes they fall off and sometimes they can't, and sometimes those children end up in the system. And that's not the child's fault. And the child tends to blame themselves, like it was them, they were too much, they were too constant. But that's not true. That's because that person did the best they could with what they knew. That doesn't mean that they're right, wrong, or indifferent, but it will affect that child's mental health. It can affect it in two ways. It can affect it by making them feel that I want to be stronger, or it can affect them in the opposite way. And that's when they turn to things like substance abuse. They cannot function in life. They become criminals, things like that. So each and every child will perceive it and see it differently, like every individual does. So when it comes to, dealing with the system and dealing with trauma and dealing with those things, it's up to you on how you decide to take that. You can either use it for fuel to be better for yourself and say, that's not going to happen to me, I won't allow it. Or you can succumb and be depressed and hate your life and waste your time. And most of the time, sadly enough, you'll die alone, or you'll die, from that overdose. Like you said, the fentanyl issue is huge, and it's the second leading cause of death in the nation right now. So, I would definitely say, if you're a child or a parent that's gone through the system and say, I can't be a good parent because I went through the system, that's not true. It's up to you to pave your own road. And, I love quotes. They are very inspirational to me. So like Dolly Parton, she said, you want the rainbow? Put up with the rain. I love things like that, things that are inspirational. For the substance abuse population, and I would facilitate classes and help teach people, about, awareness of what's happening to the body. Some, that was just too much for them. And then if they're not ready at that stage, then we would just try to see about awareness, about, basic SMART goals to help them, build what they can. But unfortunately, when you are that population, you do have a stigma that, oh, they're just a drug addict, or oh, they're just homeless. And you'll find documentaries and all different kinds of things like that on that. So when it comes to that population, just being aware and trying to say, how can I help these people? So like, for instance, I will never give someone like that money, but giving them some water and some food is another story, So it's really thinking about, what can I do to help these people? And awareness is the first step. Awareness and then acceptance. And some people can't accept. So you have to allow those people, they don't want that. Some people say, I'd rather be homeless because I'm not dealing with all these rules, all these stipulations. And half the time my stuff goes missing in the shelter and this and that and the other. Whether that's true or not, it's relevant to that person, right? So, and a lot of times people are just not aware. Like when, people come into the facility and would like put their bags down, and then someone else will come in and grab that person's bag and try to like put it up or something instead of asking them, and that would trigger them and cause a crisis because their things are an extension of them. You don't touch it without asking. That would be like just walking up to a worker and grabbing their purse and moving it because you felt it was in the way without telling them. To me, that's the same. So just understanding that they're people too, and trying to help where you can. And that's where I like the Hope Services food or shoe drives and things like that, because they're helping them. Or, the mobile shower unit. I think that is the most essential thing, because a lot of these people can't access a shower, are shunned when they go into a grocery store. They're people too. So just being aware of that. And a lot of it is based on trauma, because something happened to them and they couldn't handle it. So when it comes to the substance abuse counseling, that's really important. That's a really, really important piece. So basically, when there's a special need child or adult who is having a hard time threatening harm to themselves or others, then I would assess them for homicidal and suicidal assessments. And I would assist in, the training and counseling aspects of how to help the families understand the child and how to communicate with them, why they're being triggered, things to avoid. Like sometimes just simply saying no in a deep tone to an autistic child will get that child to actually hit you in the head. It's not because they're mad at you, it's because it literally triggered a sensory issue in their ear and they just wanted it to stop, but they didn't know how to communicate it. So a lot of the times these individuals, have speech issues, can't speak, and all different shapes, sizes, and forms of mental health issues, as well as the DD issues. And most of the time, it will affect the mental health of the entire family because they're worn out. They're burnout. They're tired of getting hit. They're tired of this. They're tired of their workers walking out, or they're tired of not being able to staff and they're about to lose their job. There's all these different aspects when it comes specifically to the special needs populations. So they need that person that they can call at 1 o'clock in the morning when their young adult is, running out to the street. They don't necessarily need to become criminals. And a lot of times, if they don't have that DD crisis manager part, they will deal with the police. And unfortunately, and this is public knowledge, that the Hawaii Police Department do not have special needs classes on how to deal with special needs or how to handle them. And, that's something that, other people are advocating for, is how do we assist and train specifically for this population? Because if you're just doing basic, assaultive behavioral management, they're not going to be able to comply because they simply don't have that capacity a good percentage of that time. So, again, it always comes back to awareness and acceptance, because if we're aware and we accept, then we can change. If we're not, then you're going to continue in a very negative cycle that will not only harm you, but harm everyone around you that loves you and that you love. And that will only become a worse spiral for you. So, it's really important to understand it starts with you. You are the only person that has to live with you every day. So make it the best you can, because time is the one thing that's always spent and never gets back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much. I admire you. You're such a strong mom, And I know that you recently gave birth, and now you're back on the, just back on the wagon. No stopping you. I feel...
no, my labor leave was the 24 hours I was in hospital. That was it.
Really?
I was right back on call. Yeah, I don't take maternity leave because, that's going to really affect the population and their mental health. So again, they need that person to call at 1 o'clock in the morning, midnight, 10 p.m., 4 a.m. It doesn't matter. They need to have that ability to know that you're there. And that is comforting in itself. I mean, I've had families that didn't know that they were gonna make it and really thought that they couldn't handle, and they were gonna have to lose their young adult child or whatnot. And just going through that, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, made them feel, you know what, I have the support now, I can handle it. I have the support now, I can handle it. So like, I'm always available to my clients and their families, and they know that. There's other clients that feel they have to text me all the time just to know I'm there. And I have special little things for them, telling them I'm proud of them, or their techniques that they use for their coping skills. I'll create little pictures of those so I can send them to them. So if they're having a hard time, right then and there, their coping skill will pop up on their screen and they'll be able to cope right then and there. Because in the end, when it comes to the DD population, you have to teach that individual self-control, because that's pretty much the only thing that's going to truly stop those outbursts or those harms, is teaching them that self-control piece. And then on top of them learning that and achieving that, then the family and mothers have something to be proud of. The fathers, the uncles, the aunties, whoever's taking care of them, the grandparents. It doesn't really matter who the caregiver is. Sometimes it's multiple people. It's teaching them how to communicate with them, and teaching that special needs person their own coping skills. Let them choose. Don't pick something out and hand it to them and say, this is for you. Take them to the store so they can pick it out, because then they're more likely to use it. Like, it's just those little things that people just don't even think about. But you're taking away their opportunity when you do that. When you go to the store, for instance, and you want to go buy a nice purse, you don't want someone to pick it out and hand it to you. What if it's color you don't like? What if it's a shape you don't like? What if it doesn't have enough pockets? There's all these different things. There are people too, they're going to feel the same way. So just remembering that, if you're going to sit there and say, oh no, I have to do it, I have to do it, I have to do it, then how are they going to learn? And what happens when you're gone? What's going to happen to that young adult? And those are important things to remember when it comes specifically to that population. And yes, I have worked there for 7 years, going on 8. I have no intention of leaving anytime soon. I still do volunteer work. My husband still's in college. He works as a hab tech as well, so he's in the same industry, and he helps other people meet their goals, because that's also really important, meeting their life goals. So if they're like a child, for instance, and they want to become adults, they need to be able to function. And that's, if they're DD, trauma population, it doesn't really matter which population they are. It's how can you as a mom make sure that they have ample opportunity. And when you really think of that as a mom, then you say, okay, now I'm proud of myself as a mom, and I feel internally rewarded, because now I see that my child is a young, respectable, contributing member of society. And that's really our jobs, is to make sure, because we have chosen to be mom, right? By being a mom, we've chosen that. So now you have to say, how can I best support that child or children? And then as a mom, that's the most essential part. And again, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be putting yourself in the position to take care of children. And if you, for some reason, like say you're a young mom like I was, and you didn't know where to go, where to turn to, and you're having a hard time, that doesn't mean that child's not going to look back on that and say, wow, mom, I know it was a struggle, but we made it through together. And that's something that a mom can be proud of, not giving up on their child, and their child in turn will not give up on them. So I've been there as far as that kind of issue. And then I was able to meet a great man, and we've had more kids, and it's just been, a real fun time. And it is a roller coaster, but it's a roller coaster that we've chosen to commit to and be on. And that's the most essential part when it comes to being a mom, thinking about your mental health. It's also about your children's mental health, your other half's mental health. And I know that not everybody is going to say, well, I want to be with, this type of person or that type of person. It doesn't really matter what type of partner you choose. Make sure it's someone for you that you can commit to, and in turn commits to you, because the commitment piece and the sharing piece, the communication piece, making sure that their needs are met just like yours. And if you're having a hard time understanding that, simply communicating with them, saying something like, I feel that I can't meet your needs. I don't know how. Please tell me. Something like that. And, if that partner doesn't know, then it's come to light now that they don't know, and they need to communicate more to find out what that bottom line is, what that issue really was. So that's also really important, is not only the awareness of it, but to communicate to people. So let's say, for instance, you want to figure out how can my family and friends and community support me. So I would definitely say, research it, network it, see what's in your community that pulls you. Because again, you don't want to do something that you feel pushed to do, because that's when you roll out of bed and deal with that 9-to-5 job that's dead end, that you are miserable in. Because guess what? If you're miserable because you're doing that, your family's going to see it and they're going to become miserable in turn. So your mental health means doing what pulls you. And if you have the dead end job because you have to have it right now, that's not the rest of your life. Then start on education. Start on something you think that you can do. There's online schools now. There's technology now. There's public libraries to be able to do your schoolwork. And I was one of those students that had no computer, had none of that. And I was at the library, the public library in Hilo, doing my work. And there's nothing that will stop you but you. So if you truly want to do better in your life, then you just have to say, today is the day. Don't put it off to tomorrow, because tomorrow may never come. Do it today, because that's why you're here, right? That's why you're listening. That's why you're all here, right? So you're here because you want to know, how can I be helped? You're seeking the help already. So just continue to do that. Communicate what you need. And if you feel, hey, I'm afraid that I'm going to be tagged as this, that, or the other, you can go to the clinic and go get counseling services that are not going to be on your record if that's your concern. If you're concerned that, hey, I don't want to be dubbed this or that, because if I go to seek mental health help, then they're going to take my kids. That's not true. Not unless you're doing something that your kids should be taken away for. And then if that's the case, then you already need to look inside and say, why am I doing this? Why do I feel I need this? And that's another important piece, because again, that's where awareness comes in. So if you feel for any reason that you can't seek help, then you need to find out why you feel that way. Because again, you're the person that lives with you every day. You don't want to wake up 30 years from now saying, what happened? I'm a horrible person and a bad mom. That's exactly what you don't want. So, do it today. Seek the help today if that's what you need. If you already are in counseling, continue. If you even feel you need medication management for whatever reason, those resources are out there. Find someone that you feel that you can talk to, even if it's going to church. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own beliefs. So if you don't feel that you can volunteer because you don't have the time, you can also listen to motivational podcasts. There's YouTube, there's all kinds of things out there, Spotify, everything. We have these devices. So, if you're feeling really down and depressed or traumatized, know that only you can pull yourself back out. So if you don't feel that I'm strong enough to do it for myself, that's fine. Some people aren't, and that's okay. But be strong enough for those that you love, because you love them. Let them be your belief system until you can believe in yourself. That I've advocated and researched for over 12 years, because my son is 12 years old and he's autistic, and he is high functioning, but he also has like speech disorders and ADHD. He has about 5 different disabilities altogether. He is not medicated at all. He is in pure general ed, and he can do it all himself. He is at grade level currently. So like I said, it's that support system to be that mom. And he has 3 other siblings of all ages. So it's really important to make sure he gets the help he needs. He has outdoor services, in-home services. All those things are really, really important when it comes to the special needs population. Now, the reason I say there's not enough resources, because if you look at like the DOE, for instance, a lot of the schools don't even have a special needs teacher. Like currently, I'm concerned that some are just coordinators, and we're supposed to have RBTs on the island for these things. We're supposed to have people that are able to do functional behavioral analysis. Even our DD system itself is denying people left and right because it's too overloaded, that should get these services. And then it goes down to the companies that are the service providers, and they're losing staff, they're losing money. There's a huge inflation, and that inflation is in turn creating, something that we've seen worse off in the world ever. It's worse than the Greatest Depression currently. So that's all really important to get these resources. And the problem is we have low pay here, and the resources have to come from the mainland.
So, are you the only crisis manager for the DD population on this island?
On the Big Island, yes. Yes, I am. There's if I take it off, there is no one that goes on call beyond the general ed crisis. And generally they deal with homeless and substance abuse, so they would not have the same skill set to handle. So that's another reason, like, I don't go on things like maternity leave, because I do understand that they won't have the assistance that is essential.
So are you employed by the state in this capacity?
The state actually has provided the service provider I work for that. The state doesn't even provide such a thing.
Oh, okay.
They outsource, basically.
Okay. So, scenario, if a parent has a special needs child and they go through the system, is there any support system within the, say, child welfare or police department or any of those services that you know of?
No, and again, even the police department do not have the training for the special needs itself. We don't have enough supports. For instance, we have one dom home on the entire island that can only fit 4 people, and that should be the step before independent living for special needs. That's another example. I mean, I can go on and on all day about the examples of how we don't. For instance, if your child is really, really needing like a crisis shelter, they have to go all the way to Oahu, and you're not allowed to see them until basically they calm down for at least 2 weeks straight. And sometimes that takes years. And even that has a huge waiting list because it's a small home, basically. So it, again, not enough resources at all for even, the substance abuse populations. And if they are like DD and they're in the mental health side, DD will say we can't assist them because they're on the mental health side. They don't collaborate, they compete, and they already don't have enough resources. So DHS always competes with DOE and vice versa, for instance. It's developmental disabilities. So when your child needs to get like HabTech services or wants to, get assistance, so one-on-one assistance, two-on-one assistance, they have to go through the state itself to actually obtain that. And it's very hard to actually obtain that. For my son, who has solid assessments done through the family guidance system here, had to get additional, and he's been in special needs his whole life. And there's my 5-year-old who is homesick. I'm making her breakfast. So yeah, it's important to really think about, what can we do to assist them and how can we do it to assist them. And it's really sad, and these are things that I advocate for on a regular basis, of what can we do to assist these populations and these individuals, because they all deserve to have the opportunity to have a family one day. They all have, they should all have their rights respected, and they should all be able to have dignity and respect in their lives, regardless of what population they are, whether they're special needs, whether they're homeless. That shouldn't be relevant in those aspects. It should be, how can I help this individual, and what resources can we get these individuals? So like I said, with DD, it took my son 1.5 years, and he's been in special needs his whole school career. I had to provide so much different paperwork, and it still wasn't good enough. I had to get another DD case manager to come from Kona just to do an ICAP for him. And if your child seems too independent, they'll kick him out. If he or she doesn't have a physical done every year, then they lose their services and have to reapply. and then they can say, well, we don't want to do this. Previously, they used to have behavioral contracts. So if you didn't do exactly what your case manager thought you should be doing, you would lose your services. I have to advocate for people who live independently to not be put in a home because they're just. So, those are examples of what I've personally seen in that population and other populations. So it's really important that, we look at the resources and say, how can we assist these guys and how can we make it better? For instance, in the DD, each case manager has over 120 cases each. Legally, they should only have no more than 60, but they're not opening up more positions for people to apply. Because they're losing too much money in the state. Those are other concerns, that I bring up. Another concern is when they pick and choose the laws. And for instance, they say no parent or guardian can, care for their child under the age of 18. But the law that they specifically refer to says guardian of a minor or young adult. That means if you have guardianship papers, even after they're 18, you should not be allowed to get services. But they did what like people do in a Facebook post. They pick and choose what aspects they want. So as a mother, even though I am not his legal guardian, that he's mine basically by default, that I still can't provide services for him. But my husband, because we're not legally married, can. That's not fair. And then I see people who have actual guardianship papers, who actually are like guardian ad litem and all that, and they fully service their kids and get money for it. So I feel that, it should be an all or none thing. And that's something that I fought, all the way up to the top of the DD for over 3 years now. And they just pretty much keep ignoring me. So, before COVID, I was going to lobby at Washington and say, why are you allowing this state to do this? Because they're picking and choosing your laws. So that is another aspect that's very concerning because people don't know that. I had to research that to find that out.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I think when you have a special needs child that nobody tells you and you just kind of fumble along. I have an autistic child too,
Yeah.
So you know that. And I feel like we as advocates need to bring about awareness, and also we need to show that there's something that can be done so that we can improve. How can we get in touch with someone to help us on the Big Island? Do you have any resources that a parent can go to in case they have a crisis?
Well, generally, any emergency room has a social worker that can assist you in any kind of crisis, and they have each and every one of our crisis numbers to be able to call if it's like a really huge emergency. You always have that ability. CARE Hawai'i always has their helplines, whether it's general population or the DD, so you can always call those lines, even if it's DD. That's how I'm dispatched, right? So if you're having a special needs crisis, you would just call the crisis line for the special needs, and you can Google any of these things. It's all public information. Other things, Turning Point Families is another one. Family guidance. If you have a child under 21 that needs additional therapy, early intervention. If you have a newborn or a 2-year-old that you think might be autistic, there are early intervention programs out there. Family guidance is another great one. Or just going to a basic psychiatrist or psychologist. Like Dr. Eaglin is a great psychologist here on this side of the island. Dr. Chun is, in Waimea area. And then we have additional doctors on the Kona side. So there are resources out there, but they're few and far in between. If you need like shelter, for instance, CARE Hawai'i does work with Hope Services. Hope Services is great. If you're looking for employment, Full Life is great for the DD population as well. Or if you just need, them to get services, you would have to apply with the DD and the state. And, you can always contact me through Shauna because she has my personal information. So I always, assist with personal referrals. I'm known as the DD consultant for the state. And that is a volunteer position, by the way, not paid. So I do attend a lot of the waiver meetings, a lot of the DTI meetings. I work with the hospital directly, the behavioral unit as well. I assist with transfers to Oahu if needed, and things like that as well. So there are definitely the resources out there, but again, they're few and far in between and a lot of waiting. So I would like to help assist with decreasing that wait time and things like that. So that's a lot of why I, again, don't go on like maternity leave, because then that capacity goes away and that can really harm, my families, my clients. So that's really, really important. And even in the substance abuse population, you see someone struggling, see if they're hungry, give them a burger, a sandwich, some water, some chips that you have in the car. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be great, and if they're like, hey, I have food, I don't need that, I need this and that, then that's not their problem. Then tell them maybe you need to seek some help, some services. Maybe here's some good resources for you depending on what their need is, if you have that time. And if you don't, you can always, call somebody and say, hey, I see this is going on down there. Can you send, homeless outreach? CARE Hawai'i has homeless outreach. Hope Services has homeless outreach. So, if you're just someone driving by and see these people, you can always say, hey, there's these outreach. And if they don't want to talk to you, you can just call the people and say, hey, maybe you can outreach to these people. And if they still don't want that help, at least you tried. And that's what being a good Samaritan is, right? So, I would be careful about, really approaching them, because if they are on a huge substance, it's like fentanyl and it's powdered and you get a whiff of that, you can accidentally OD. Same with like CPR and things like that. If you see someone ODing, you have to have Narcan. If you don't have Narcan, call 911. Don't even go near that person, because you can then put yourself at risk or your child. So be aware. Again, awareness is key. And if you have trouble with awareness, then networking, talking to people. And if you're not ready for that, that's fine. Then look within.
Well, you're a mother to admire, and I thank you so much. And
you can do it. Even if you're traumatized, even if you're having a hard time, even if you went through the system, pave your own way, and you can do it. You can do anything that you put your mind to.
Thank you, Ashley. I do appreciate that. And you're one of my inspirations. So I appreciate the light that you bring to the world. And God bless you and all you do. I really appreciate your time and your talent and your heart.
Yeah, and you can even become a who's of America if you really try.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, you have a great day, Ashley.
All right, and you have a good one.
Family.
You too.
Aloha.
I'll tell him you said hi. Bye.